Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world, you're joining us. Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations about Network Marketing. And I'm BK, and as usual, our co-host on the other end, Dr. Wayne. Hi, Dr. Wayne.
Hi, BK. Hi, everyone.
So today, we do not have show notes. Because today is literally is going to be a candid conversation. This will be the final episode for 2020
Yes.
while we take a short break for the Christmas holiday season before the new year. So we will reconvene when the new year starts, right, Dr. Wayne?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah. So this is our final episode for 2020, and we kind of wanted to perhaps have some thoughts about how it has been so far, and some epiphany moments for ourselves, and basically just the things that we do before we start the show.
Yeah. We usually have a good chat before the show. We should say, "Oh, we should have taped that."
We actually do. But so next time we have to have a highlight reel, of all the pre-show things. So I guess So this is actually what we do. Dr. Wayne and I, before we start we actually record the show. We do have a bit of a chat, where we kind of catch up on each other's lives. We are actually friends first,
Yes.
before anything else, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we are doing this podcast together, but we are friends, So we kind of catch up with each other, update each other on what's going on in our lives, personal lives. Then we talk a bit about things we have maybe encountered or learned. And then we get into the show, But I honestly feel that some days, not to say that the shows are not great, but I do feel that some days there are some gems inside the pre-show dialogues, right?
Yes, and we try to highlight them through the show as well. So,
Yes.
yeah. And
We
I suppose
bring them over.
bring them over. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So today we'll see if we can put all that information that we've been talking about into some sort of practicality. I suppose might be a nice way of looking at a BK for the network marketer, or even for the, then we might even have people on here who are not network marketers, who are business builders, and they have a self-employed in their business, just looking at, the mind and how that can actually enhance our business or subtract from our business as well. And I think you had a great we were talking about something that was really interesting, because we had a Zoom call prior to this to some of our leaders as well, and they were talking about the same phenomena in terms of there seems to be a level that happens, and we were talking about the practicality of that level. So that might be a level in our business. It's Director 700 to Bronze, for example. And typically what happens is that when we get to Director 700 is that we've basically used up all our leads. And we get to a point where we have no one to talk to. And what do we do beyond that? And this is where most people then get stuck. And we kind of lightly talked about the concept that wherever we are in life, we will then attract those people into our business at that level. So what we generally find is when people come on board, and this is neither right nor wrong, it just is, and when we understand that there is no blame to any of this, it's just the way life happens, because 90% of who we are was programmed prior to the age of 7, and typically 70,000 thoughts per day, and most of them unfortunately aren't exactly positive. So what happens then is we tend to gravitate to certain ways of thinking, and therefore we'll bring in certain friends and people that can actually, they're great at using the product, but they don't actually build the business. So what do we need to do then from there? And we talked about the concept of dividing your leads up into, the hot and the warm and the lukewarm and the cold, for example. And I think you went into something really interesting there, BK, with regards to, the people who really do well. So what is it, the difference? What happens to that Director 700? How do they then become that bronze, or whatever that point is whereby I've got to go outside my friends. I've got to go outside this. What allows that to occur? And it's typically, as we agreed upon, was the training. But you had some great insights there, BK, if you'd like to share them. Yeah, the training and the willingness to train.
Yeah, so the thing is, when we in our industry, we kind of always hear the term is a numbers game, which is not a very popular statement with me. Let me explain why. Because it kind of gives the impression that we treat people like it's like we treat people like they're just not important, but that's not true. In fact, that's the last thing you want to do if you want to do well in this business, right? Because
Correct.
this is actually a people's business. But what the phrase "it's a numbers game" really means, I think, or trying to express, is the fact that in anything there is a statistical and empirical law to things, right?
Yes.
So there is something called the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule. There are also distribution curves and all those things, right? So numbers definitely play a role in our life, business, and everything, right? So we kind of need to know how to work with the laws that govern such things. So what Dr. Wayne was saying just now is that when so it is natural that 80% of people that join network marketing actually mostly join because they just want to be customers.
Yes.
Yeah, they are just accessing. They just want to access the products at the best possible price, and they normally do not do anything more than that, which is fine, right? Therefore, they are not likely to be making like significant income because they never intended to. They join because they wanted to access the product, right?
Yeah.
So the last 20% are the people who start to be looking at earning. They make some income from the business, and that's because they are doing something with the business, right? So the crucial thing now is when we look at the 20% or the whatever percentage it is, what we want to do is, instead of looking at how 80% of people are not making money or not benefiting from the opportunity, we should be pulling apart the 20% and looking at how and why they are doing well, or
why they are successful,
why they are doing at what level, right?
Yeah.
That's the real thing we want to do, right? And interestingly, I got reacquainted with one of my favorite authors from a long time ago. His name is Tim Sales. Do check him out if you want to, right? He was talking about the difference between someone who is earning $1 million a year or a month and someone who is not earning so much, or someone who is not making any at all, is the willingness to be trained.
Yeah.
It is the willingness to be trained. And I think is actually, he said that's the only differentiating factor. So people who are not making much or not making any at all, they don't do any training. So in a school term, I mean in the academic way of describing it, that's kind of like the failing grade, right? It's like your F grade student, your F student, right? And then you have the D student who are the just passing ones, just making the grade, right? Those are the ones that do engage with some training, but they leave it that step. They don't complete it. They may not be fully interested. They are the students who sit in class, they listen, and then maybe half the time they're daydreaming, but they do get by. They do get enough knowledge to pass the exam, right?
Yeah.
Then of course you have the average student that is actually taking in the training, but they are not. But that's where it stops. They don't pass it on. They don't pass it on to the team. So they are learning and they are growing. They do grow, but they do not do the next step, which is to progress to become a leader and pass on the training to their team. So that's an average student, right? And then of course you have the leaders already. Okay, the leaders are the ones that start to take the training, right? Learn the training, pass it on to the training, pass it on. And then and while they pass it on, they will obviously be rehearsing some of the trainings they are going through, right? That's the next category. Now the highest
Elise
level,
and Jason, can you be quiet, please? Sorry.
It's all right. No worries. This is live. And that's the good thing about network marketing, right? We have I think why we, I always find that it's perfectly fine, because even though we have interruptions and so on, we know that that's life, because that's the beauty of network marketing. We have the option to live life based on our own parameters, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
anyway, the next one was the highest level, the $1 million earners. They are the ones that take the training, and they love training, in fact. And whatever they learn, they will rehearse and make sure they get it right.
Yeah.
You know, that is the level of professionalism. So that's the only differentiating factor between not earning and top earners. The willingness to take training. So obviously, in line with what we are doing here, right? I'm happy to report that this podcast is now officially on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. We are officially on a few platforms. We are officially on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and some other, and on Amazon as well. That I think is a mark of it's a milestone for us, right? Because we started it day one. We said let's do it, and then now we are on this level. But the next thing is, what can we do next for people, right, Dr. Wayne? I mean, there are some people who are watching this. We can tell from the downloads or listening to this. And so how can we help more people? What do you think?
Well, it comes back to that taking responsibility for the willingness to actually do what is necessary. And I remember, even when I go back in anything that I've done, and even starting the network marketing business, my first amount of time was actually doing the research and then learning about the product and learning about what's necessary to be done, talking to my leaders, asking questions. I remember even the product, I listened to probably the same webinar 6 to 10 times, because I know there's such a thing as a TDS, transversional search, that happens in the brain, where when you hear something you're not sure what it means, what happens is then you usually will miss the next most important bit. And this is why when we hear something over and over and over again, we can actually glean more information out of it. So for the listeners, it's basically then going that extra step, that extra mile that you're not used to. So for example, if you are at that Director 700 level, or whatever it is where you feel as if you're stuck, then what do you need to do to go further? And as BK explains through the training that he was listening to, it's then the willingness. I think that's an important word, the willingness to then actually want to step out of your comfort zone. And this is what we teach with regards to the 5 hidden reasons why most network marketers fail and why you don't have to. And this is what this podcast is all about, is stepping out of that zone of who you are in terms of this box that we've kind of put ourselves in, and then going, okay, these are my weaknesses, but they don't have to be my weaknesses. I remember Jim Rohn saying something like, when he first started to speak, he thought, I'll get up there and start talking. And then all of a sudden he realized he left his mind behind, or when he first went out and he started walking the stage and he goes, how do I get back? But he did it. And the analogy here is that he did it. Oh, sorry, not the analogy, but what he did was he did it. And then he did it again, and he did it again. And first, when he did it, it wasn't that good. I think one of the things he said was that if I was in the audience, I would have left listening to myself. I wouldn't have stayed. So, and even with what we did there before, where I had to ask my daughter and son-in-law to basically be quiet because they didn't know, and knowing that it was live, I still had to do it so that the rest of the presentation, and they didn't know what was going on. Mistakes are made, and I think the next part of that, the willingness, is then the willingness to accept that you may not be good at the beginning. You may not be good cold calling. You may not be good finding that lead generation source that is really important for you. You might not be good initially getting in contact with the person above you to find out what you need to do to get your business to the next level. You may not be good in terms of a podcast. When we first just started doing this, we would probably say we weren't that good. Where we are now, we would like to think that we're going to be better. And I think that's the most important thing, that what we're offering and helping people with is to get out of your comfort zone, enjoy it. Don't be fearful of it. Don't be fearful of life. Allow yourself to be spontaneous. Allow yourself to love what life has to offer. And we talk about the law of correspondence. The second immutable law talks about you are this divine being and you have perfection within you. You know intuitively what's right and wrong, etc. And then we have this other side, which we can call the ego, that unfortunately then sometimes gives not the right emotion. It might be anger or frustration or lack of motivation or whatever it may be. But through willingness of choice, we can move from this left side or from this side, which may not be where we want to be, but acknowledging it and being willing to go over to this side and say, I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be able to have passive income. I want to be able to talk to people. I want to be on that stage and to receive the qualification you just got to. And if you're not that type of person, that's okay as well. But to step out of that comfort zone, I think, is really important. And just to circle back a little bit, BK, with what you said with regards to the, it was with regards to numbers. I think I'll just call it numbers. And interestingly, we've talked about, I think it's one of the modules we talk about emotional direct response marketing. So emotion is being emotional, telling your story, telling your testimonial. Direct response is knowing your numbers, but knowing your numbers from a loving, caring point of view, as BK mentioned. And then marketing, okay, what do I say? How do I say things if it's a warm lead, if it's a hot lead, a warm lead, a lukewarm or a cold lead? Because talking to those people, we need different stories. We need different ways of talking, different ways of discussing. And the interesting thing is when I'm talking to businesses and even even when I'm talking to my network marketers in my team, one of the most important things I talk to them about is literally knowing your numbers. So and I'm not saying to dwell on them, but you just know your numbers. So that might be you know your numbers of platinum, you know your numbers of whatever they may be, and then you look at them, and that's it. You just put it away, but you do it weekly. You know your numbers, and even in business, you know how much in your bank account, you know how much is being then taken out due to all your different things, and what is then left. By just doing that one phenomena, what happens then is from an intuitive point of view, your brain then will find the answers to, for example, if you find, hey, I'm in the negative here, this is not very good. I'm going backwards. And then what happens, you don't dwell on it, you just put it away. And then what happens then is intuitively your brain will go, oh, I need to do this. Because you have the willingness to take responsibility to change who you are, to become a different person, and you'll be shown the way if you take that step. And I think that's the most important part about today, is taking that step. Be willing to take that step.
Yeah, I think part of what we do here is we are helping to bring awareness to the fact that there might be certain things that are holding us back. The very fact that you are listening to this and you are watching this, whether you're downloading the podcast or you're listening to this, watching this on YouTube or something, already suggests that you have a desire to want more. But sometimes we have the desire, but we just kind of feel that there are certain blockages or barriers and so on. And where we are here, we kind of try to help to release some of those anchors and release some of those blockages if possible. And we want to congratulate you for being here and for listening and for being willing to learn. But in essence, we also learn the most when we do this, right? Because as you know, the thing about Jim Rohn, one of our favorite speakers as well, he says that the reason why he does so many motivational or so many talks It's because he wants to listen to it himself. Right. When you teach, you actually learn even better than when you
Yes.
just try to learn. That's always been the case. I've always found that to be true. So do us a favor. We have never asked this before, but I think why not, right? The universe, you need to ask, then you can receive, right?
Correct. Yeah.
If you have found value in what we have been doing, just do us a favor and share it with people you think might benefit, right?
Lovely.
Because we are just trying to bring awareness. And once you know what you do not know, just like what Dr. Wayne was saying, right? If you look at on a weekly basis, sitting down, looking at your business numbers, you will start to know what you did not know. And once you know what you do not know, the brain, the good thing about the brain is that the brain likes to solve problems.
Yes.
The brain likes to solve problems, right? And that's why there are people who say things like, if you have a problem you cannot solve, think about it before you sleep. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that you put your subconscious to work on that problem, and lo and behold, when you wake up in the morning, you might have a solution to the problem. Because they say that, I can't remember what was the number, but I think it's like the subconscious in terms of a computer is probably like 1,000 times more powerful than the normal conscious brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you assign a difficult task to the subconscious brain, you are likely to get a much better result than if you try to crack your brain and say, I cannot solve this. Then just pass it on. And the gateway obviously is sleep. When you sleep, your subconscious is obviously activated. So
Yeah, definitely.
that's one of the things that we do. But of course, little nuggets of information like this, you may or may not know, but let's say after hearing this, now you know it, right? Now you know it, and you can put it to use. So if anything in our show has been beneficial in any way to you, do us a favor, share with someone, because when you share, right, you also increase the positive energy in your universe around you as well. And
Yes,
that is
definitely.
just good for everyone.
Most definitely. And thank you, BK, for 2020. It's been a fantastic year, and putting this together and being the person who puts all the geeky stuff together, it's been really good. And for all our listeners, have a great festive season. Have a great holidays, and we really, really look forward to catching up with you in 2021.
So yes, this is the last podcast for 2020. We will be seeing you in 2021. If you do want to look at the archive episodes for the rest of the season, right? Check us out at networkmarketerpodcast.com. That is networkmarketerpodcast.com. There are show notes for the other episodes. Just this episode, we do not have one. And then the other thing is what Dr. Wayne mentioned just now. If you want to go deeper into what are some of the laws that govern our universe, and therefore whether we can succeed as a network marketer or not, we do have a program called 5hiddenreasons.com. Why most network marketers fail, but why you do not have to, right? So that's the numerical number 5hiddenreasons.com, right? So do check us out over there as well. So have a great holiday season with family. Dr. Wayne, I will see you in 2021.
And to
Bye.
you too, BK. Bye, everyone.